I'm Podman, and this is You Gotta Be Effing Kidding, with edits by Gorthax and music by Captain Geach. Here's your host.
Hello, I'm Anthony, and welcome to You Gotta Be Effing Kidding. Today is our second episode, and we're going to be talking about Creepshow 2, Electric Boogaloo. It's not what it's called, but that's what episode 2 is going to be called. So, Creepshow 2 and Creepshow 1 kind of go hand in hand for me. I feel like I've seen them both probably the same amount of times, and they both... I feel like when I was a kid, I would do like movie marathons, and so like sequels would just like get the tape, part 1, part 2, and so I like Creepshow 1 better, but Creepshow 2 is a lot of fun as well, and so we're gonna start just spoilers. All my reviews will be spoiler heavy because I just talk about the movie.
You didn't even talk about me last time, you big old jerk.
You interrupted my broadcast. I didn't even know you were going to be there.
Well, you didn't even acknowledge me.
Because I put it out and I don't know how you got on there.
Because I created you.
You're just friends with Podman. I don't even know you.
Look, man.
I'm trying to record my thing and you're interrupting already. At least I know you're here now. I found out Gorthak was on my last video. After it got uploaded.
That's Gorthax.
Gorthax, I'm sorry. Yeah, I had no idea when I put it up that he was going to be on there. He just popped up, and I was watching it back, and there he was, talking shit.
Calm down. I mean, get to the point, Sally, and I won't have to interrupt you.
Okay. Well, someone in this movie. So let me get to this movie. You can chime in whenever you want, because you're going to do it anyway. Oh, so in Creepshow 2 is only 3 segments instead of 5 like the original, and it has, let's see, Old Chief Woodenhead, the Raft, and the Hitchhiker, which I enjoy all these. And they are a little strange, but they're fun. So the first, it starts similar to the original. It doesn't have a comic book style. It goes from live action to animated, but like it's a cartoon. It's not like the comic book thing like the first movie, so it's a little different. George A. Romero didn't direct this one. He wrote it. And Stephen King also has Stephen King stories in it, like the last one as well. The director is Michael Gordnick, and so the movie starts with this kid named Billy, that's his name, same name as the kid from the last one. It's a different kid. Might be the same kid, but like different actor. And he's waiting for the new Creepshow comic to come out. And he goes to where they're dropping off like the newspapers, and there's a creepy guy played by Tom Savini who's dropping off the magazines, and he knows Billy, and he's like, "You're always here when I drop these magazines off, like you need them right off the presses, like your life depends on it." And so he tosses the magazines out. And like he does like this like hand thing, and then if I remember correctly, the truck drives away, and Billy picks up the first copy of Creepshow, and he like takes off on his bike, and then it cuts to animation, and he runs into these bullies. Or was that after the first one? Yeah, so the front of the comic is the last picture. The last movie ended with a Creepshow comic cover with the Billy stabbing the voodoo doll, and that's that cover. And then Okay, so yeah, Billy, the delivery man is the creeper, and he has a redesign, and he actually talks, and he's not voiced by Tom Savini. He's voiced by, um, I lost it, Joe Silver, and so it cuts to an animation, and they're in like a castle, and the creeper, he starts talking about the first story, and it's Old Chief Woodenhead. And so Old Chief Woodenhead starts with this older couple talking about an old man. His name is Ray, and he is painting Old Chief Woodenhead's war paint on. He's this old Native American statue in front of his convenience store. And the town they live in is like it's a dead town. And they're the only convenience store. And his wife talks to him about how like they hadn't had a paying customer in weeks, and they needed to shut the store down. And but he's really like sentimental about the store, about how like when the store was and the town was like alive, that it like to put their kids through school and everything. And she's like, yeah, but that was a long time ago. And so yeah, so he's painting the old Chief Woodenhead's makeup or war paint, and and then like it's really dry out, so like a car pulls up and like the gravel or the dirt kind of flies and gets on Old Chief Woodenhead, and he's like, I shouldn't paint such a dry day. And he goes inside, or well, who pulls up is I think it's Billy, or no, it's Benjamin. Benjamin White Moon, who's a local Native American guy who has borrowed stuff from them for a long time, and he goes up and he talks to Ray, and they go in his store, and he's like, "Our tribe is very grateful for you for helping us so long," and he gives him and his wife Martha and like a bag of jewels, like turquoise jewels, like Native American jewelry, and he tells him he's grateful for him and that they're gonna pay him back everything they owe him, and if they don't pay him back at a certain amount of time, that he gets to keep all that jewelry because it's worth. I didn't write down how much it was worth, but it's just like how they believe, and so he's like, I can't take this, like it belongs to your people. And he's like, it'd be like very shameful for us if you don't take it. So he takes it, and Benjamin leaves. And before Benjamin leaves, Martha tells him that she was telling Ray right before he got there that like people just use them, like, and he shouldn't be so accommodating, basically. And when Benjamin comes and does that, she's like, I was just saying this and you changed my mind. You showed me different than I thought. And so then Benjamin leaves, and then like a couple hours later, and Ray is like closing down the store, and through the back of the store, three people show up, and they break in, and it's Benjamin's nephew, Sam, and his buddy Andy, who he just calls Rich Boy, and Vince, who he calls Fatso. Sam is the ringleader, and he calls him that. And so they go in, and they are like ransacking the store, and they start talking about how like this town's dead, and they're going to Hollywood. But before they go to Hollywood, they're gonna take what belongs to them or whatever they want from the store, and like they're stealing a bunch of stuff. And Sam has Martha go into the back to get her purse to get the money she has, and then he gets the money that Ray has, and he while he's talking to Ray, he like goes over to like a photo booth. He goes inside, and he's talking about, because he has this really long hair, and he's talking about how like his hair is gonna make him famous. And I remember uh, he's like, I'm gonna go to Hollywood and they're just gonna see my hair and they're just gonna fall in love with me and they're gonna say, come over here and let us put you in our movies. And he's like, my hair is gonna get me laid and get me paid and like, I don't know. And then so he takes the pictures and he's still talking and he's telling Vince or Fatso and Rich Boy that, you know, get whatever they want. And oh, he has a shotgun the whole time, so like he's holding them up. And Martha comes out with her purse and she tries to go over to Ray. And Sam, he's like, lady, over here. And he has her come over to him and he pulls like the photos out and he's like, shows them to her. And he's like, you know that guy from that movie where he has long hair and he's all powerful and then some bitch cuts it off and he loses his power? And she goes, no. And he goes, well, I'm better looking than that guy in that movie. Which, okay, he's very vain. And so so Ray kind of starts coming forward, and so Sam grabs Martha and he like puts the gun up to her and he goes, stay back, old man, or I swear it's gonna be blam all over your old lady. And it's very intense. And so he's holding her and then like Ray moves a little bit more and so he shoots her and she dies. And like he has the gun like here, so he shoots her. And so Ray starts kind of coming towards it to like go to his wife who just got shot. And so while he's kind of walking over, he gets shot and he falls on some bags and stuff. And so Sam and Rich Boy and Fatso, they go and they hop out. They go get in the car that Rich Boy has, and they like take off. And they have all the money and all the stuff from the store, and they were gonna try to go to Hollywood the next day, but they decided to go that night after they killed them. So, you've seen Chief Woodenhead like when Benjamin was leaving earlier, and he said like goodbye to him, and Chief Woodenhead kind of nods at him. You kind of see him moving a little bit, and so when they leave, Chief Woodenhead like gets off of the mantle, and he's I don't know if he's alive, but like he's vengeful towards them because Ray and Martha had been so good to all the Native Americans around there. And so I remember he gets the paint, and he puts his war paint on, and then he goes and starts hunting down all three of those guys. And I'm trying to see who goes first.
We're patiently waiting here.
Chief Woodenhead, he first goes over to Vince's house, Fatso.
You're relying on your notes too much.
I watched it like a week ago. I should have watched it again. But he's watching the show, and he's like mimicking the show, and he's like he's like sitting in a chair with like a beer, and like then you see an arrow like hit him, and how they did that was they had a thing in a can in a fake hand, and like so it shot out instead of shooting in, and so it looked like he got shot with an arrow. And then I think he has a hat that just says like "fuck you" on it or something. I can't remember what it says. Anyway, so he gets hit when he's just shocked, and then he gets hit in the forehead, like right, and he dies. And then after that, Chief Woodenhead goes after Andy, Rich Boy, and he finds him, and like he just like takes a tomahawk to him and kills him that way. And then he gets and then Sam's at his house, and he kind of starts hearing stuff, and then Chief Woodenhead like breaks through his door, and he's like, "You can't be here. You're not alive." And he like goes and he runs away. And he shoots him, but like it doesn't do anything because he's like a wooden.
He's
statue.
made out of wood.
He's made out of wood. And so Sam like goes into his bathroom and tries to get out the window there, and then Chief Woodenhead like busts through the side wall, and like pulls him, grabs him by his hair and like pulls him through, and he has his tomahawk, and he like has his head like through the wall, and like he like scalps him, which is like a thing people are afraid of Native Americans to do. It's kind of racist. I don't know, just racist. And but so he does that to him, and then like you hear him screaming, and it like cuts to the next day, and Benjamin White Moon comes back to the store, and you see Chief Woodenhead there, and he has Sam's hair in his hand, and let's see.
And he says, Nahome.
Yeah, scalps him off screen.
Nahome. Or what?
Oh, okay. So Benjamin wakes up the next morning, and the bag of jewelry is in his bed, and so he like takes it and he goes to the convenience store, and so he sees the Chief Woodenhead there with the hair, and his war paint is on, and then like it doesn't show it, but like he goes in the store and sees everything that happened. And then, let's see here. Okay, yeah. So Chief Woodenhead, or Benjamin tells Chief Woodenhead he wishes him like a peaceful afterlife, and he drives off. And then that's the last of that. So Martha, she. This was her last movie she ever filmed before her passing away. Well, Dorothy Lamour. I don't know. So Chief Woodenhead, there was a statue they made, and then there's a guy in a suit. So there's two, but they're made from the same cast. So they look the same. And so they hired a mime to play Chief Woodenhead, so he's more like expressive. And so he has really big movements.
Was he silent when he got the job?
Probably. Mime. I'm a mime. Something like that. That's probably what he did. He was off duty, so he could say that. It goes back to the animation with Billy, and he goes to the post office to pick up this thing he ordered, and he gets like in a little baggie. He gets his package, and the guy that he gets it from asks him what it is, and he tells him it's a Venus flytrap, a meat-eating Venus flytrap. And let's see, wait, is that right? Crap.
Go back to the beginning.
Let's see. Basically, all you need to know is Billy picked up a package with something in it, and he says it's a meat-eating Venus flytrap, and then he like rides away. And let's see. So the creep appears behind the post office counter, and he's surprised that the audience is still watching, and so he starts to tell the next story, and the next story is the raft. And so the raft starts with these I'd say they're college age kids. I don't know how old the actors were, but so there's 4 of them, and they're going out to this, was it pond? Okay, yeah, they're going out to a lake that's like secluded, and it's like late in the season, so like it's not cold, but it's not like summer. So they're in like a sports car, or not a sports car, like a Chevy, not a Chevy, like a Corvette. And so they're going to this secluded lake area, and there's Deke, Laverne, Randy, and Rachel. And so they go over to this, it's like a beach, I guess, but it's in a lake. So they're driving there, and they're talking about like, if it's gonna be like secluded. And the guy's like, yeah, it's late in the season, no one knows about this place, and so they're driving there, and two of them are dating, if I remember correctly. And let's see. Okay, yeah. So two of them are dating, and one guy likes another girl, but like they're not together. And so they drive to the beach, and then they like get out of the car, and one of the guys gets in the water, and like he's like, "Oh, it's fine." Or no, both of the guys get in the water, and they're like, "Oh, it feels great." And like the one that says that turns to the other guy, and he's like obviously cold, and he's like, "No." And then the girls get in, and yeah, they see a wooden raft in the middle of the lake, and so they're gonna swim out to it. So Randy sees a duck in the water, and then like while they're swimming out to the raft, and like there's this big goop in the water, and it like gets the duck and like takes it under, and he sees it, but nobody else does. So he's on the raft when he sees that, and so he's like telling everyone to hurry up and get on the raft, and like he's real stressed about it, and the other guy's like, "Whoa, like calm down." And but you see like they called it the blob in the behind the scenes because that's what it looked like, and so he sees this blob thing coming towards the raft, and then like they're on the other side of the raft, and he's like, "Just hurry up, get over here." And so he finally gets everybody on the raft, and then you can see the blob kind of go around the raft, and they and so everyone's like looking at it, and Randy's like he's like, "Be careful with that." And he's like, and David's like, "What is it?" And
It's not David.
Deke is like, "What is that?" And he's like, "I don't know. Is it oil slick?" And he's like, "You ever seen an oil slick move like that?" And he's like, "Well, I've never seen an oil slick in my life." And so they're on the raft, and like I think Rachel like reaches down to it, and it grabs her.
Yeah, grabs her.
Yeah. So Rachel
Latches onto her hand.
Yeah, Rachel leans down to like touch it to see what it is, and it like grabs her hand and like pulls her in the water, and then like she like starts like melting like while it's like has her.
And he's like, "Oh my god!"
He doesn't. Oh my god, like the guy in the first movie. He doesn't. Oh my god. He doesn't do that. But they are freaked out, and so they see this happen to her, and like she comes back out of the water, and she's like a skeleton, and they're like, what is that? Like, how'd that even do that? And like, so
they're also high too.
were they smoking?
They were smoking at the beginning.
Oh, were they smoking in the car?
Yeah. And then Deke carries it in a pill bottle so it doesn't get wet.
So they're waiting on the raft for like the blob to like go away or anything, but it's not going away. And so Deke decides that he's going to swim to shore and like go get them help, like distract it, and I'm gonna jump in and swim. And so they're like, "No, that's a bad idea." And he's like talking to him, and like they're arguing, and then all of a sudden like Deke just kind of starts like screaming in pain, and like you see his foot is like on a crack, and the blob had come up between the cracks and like got onto him, and it like pulls him through the raft, like he pulls him through the raft, and like he like goes through the cracks, like it just melts him, and like you see his hand, and like he has like a ring on, and like the only thing left is like his ring comes off when he's coming through the cracks. And so Rachel died. Laverne and Randy are the only two left, and so they like take turns like watching and staying, like, because Rachel's asleep, and or not Rachel, Laverne's asleep in Randy's arms, and like he's like keeping his feet like away from the cracks. And they both kind of like fall asleep at one point, and I don't know why the blob doesn't get them at that point, but it's whatever. And so
Because he's like, stay away from the cracks.
I mean, maybe like he ate someone, so he's fine for a little bit. So so Randy, he like, I don't know why he does this, it's weird, but he puts her down, and like he starts like kissing on her and stuff while she's asleep, and it's like real creepy. and it's a movie from the 80s, so it's not like out of the ordinary, but like she has a sweater on because she's cold. And like he starts like kissing her chest and stuff, and like lifts her sweater up, and then she is like moving, like she's uncomfortable, and then she wakes up and she like turns, and like her face is all like melting, and she's like, "Oh, Randy, help me!" And like it's this calm, like nice music, like when he's like taking advantage of her, and then like it kind of like quickly switches to like a horror, like a high like ring kind of music when she like have her face coming away. So like it starts pulling her in, and so Randy, like while it's like eating her, like dives in the water and like swims to shore. And while he's swimming to shore, the blob kind of starts coming towards him, and he just swims like as fast as he can, and he gets up to the shore, and he like gets there, and he's on the shore, like right there out of the water, and he's like screaming at the blob. He's like, I beat you, and like he's gonna go like get out of there, and all of a sudden the blob kind of comes out of the water and just lands on top of him, and like drags him back in the water. And there's a camera, like the camera's over by the car now, and you see the blob kind of go back into the water, and you see like where Randy would be, and then like it kind of just goes away real quick, like this little mound. Can't think of the word.
Oil slick.
Well, like you see where he would be, and then it goes away, like a little bump in the oil slick thing, and he and then it goes back out, and then the camera pans out, and it goes over to the car, and the car had been playing music the whole time, and it'd been like a day. And so it goes past the car, and as it passes the car, the battery dies in the car, and then it goes over to a sign that's covered in like bush and stuff, and it just says no swimming, and then it cuts back to animation. So the raft, I like the raft. It's not much happens in it, you know. It's very short and contained, and it gets a little weird, but I don't know, just how simple it is entertaining, and the simplification of like a blob creature that just eats people is fun, but not much really to say about the raft without, like, you just see it, and you know, with the movie and how a creature works and the rules of the movie, the universe of the movie, it's a very simple one. You know, blob creature eats people, and or eats whatever's in this lake, and it lives in this lake. And then let's see here. Yeah, so there's nobody left in that, and so it cuts back to animation, and you see Billy going from the post office, and he's reading a comic while he's riding his bike. But then you see
Don't try that at home, kids.
don't try reading a comic while you're riding your bike. Yeah, that's a bad idea. You see these bullies like kind of stop him, and they start making fun of him, and there's the leader is a guy named Rhino, and he takes the package from Billy, and he's like calling him a wuss and stuff, and he gets it and like crushes it, and then he throws it on the ground, and he stomps on it, and then he starts picking on Billy, and then Billy like kicks him in the nuts and like gets on his bike and like runs away. And so Rhino tells his buddies to like chase him, and Billy's like getting away, and the creep kind of pops up, and he's like, "There's gonna be like they're gonna have a hard time catching Billy because he knows this town really well, and they won't catch him." And then then you see Billy like ride away. Hello there. Oh, so when we recorded Creepshow 2, we looked back at the Hitcher section and weren't too happy with it. So we're going to do a little management with that and re-talk about it and hopefully get a video that we like better. We just rewatched that section of the movie, me and Podman, and I have my notes still. So let's see if we can do this better this time. So the Hitcher is the third segment in Creepshow 2.
The final segment.
And the final segment. And we start with a man and a woman in a bed, and they wake up, and their clock is flashing midnight because power went out. So they see that, and they were like, "Oh, the power must have went out." And when the power goes out, the clock goes to midnight because it's digital. And let's see, what's her name? Annie is talking to the guy that she's in the bed with, and she starts talking about how she has to get to dinner with her husband, and that if she doesn't make it on time and finds out that she's been cheating on him, that like she won't be able to pay him because he's a prostitute. And so she goes and she starts getting ready, and they start talking about that he needs more money because he's trying to become rich, or maybe not rich, but like
he wants a Mercedes.
Yeah, he's talking about getting a Mercedes, and that the money that she pays him now, well, he'll never be able to get a Mercedes. And so she throws him a little extra money. She finishes getting ready, and she leaves. And she's driving down the road, and she's like, it's going to be impossible to get there in time. And then she looks at what time it is, and she's like, I got to be like so many miles away in like 20 minutes, which is really impossible. And so she's like hauling ass, and she's smoking. And while she's going, she like goes to get on the highway, and she one of the embers from the cigarette falls, and she starts talking about how it's gonna cost her, how much it's gonna cost her to get the seats fixed. And she like says a very specific number, like $700 something and 40 something cents, like an exact number. And then while she's talking to herself and searching for the ember, she's kind of lost control of her car, and she's coming around like a bend. And when she's coming around it, she's going very fast, and she comes up, and then you see this guy on the side of the road. It's the hitchhiker, and he has his Dover sign. That's where he's going, and like he's holding up, and then like she comes around the corner, and like her lights hit him, and he's like, his eyes get real big, and she just hits him. He goes over the hood, and he's laying on the road, and she like spins around because she was still out of control, and then she like hits his brakes, and she stops, and her lights are on him, and he's just like his legs backwards, and
his Dover sign is
his Dover sign's flowing into the wind, and so you see the Dover on the front, and on the back it's just covered in blood. And then it flies up, and it like goes up to her window, and so she turns her lights off, and she like looks around and sees that there's nobody around, and she's just like, there's no witnesses, like, and if I think she's like, she thinks she's like, she's still got to get to her husband, so she like turns properly and starts speeding down the highway. And as she's speeding down the highway, an 18-wheeler is coming the other way, and I don't think she turns her lights back on. I'm pretty sure that they stay off, but she speeds past the 18-wheeler, and she just keeps going. So it cuts back to the hitchhiker, and a car pulls up, and there's an older guy, and he stops and he sees the body, on the road, and then the 18-wheeler comes and it stops, and the guy that saw the body first like walked over to the body. He's going back to his car because he has a car phone, and he like picks it up and he starts dialing, and someone else pulls up, and so the truck driver gets out. The truck driver is played by Stephen King, and the other person that pulled up is this woman, and she's like, "What happened?" And Stephen King's character is like, someone got hit, or someone got splattered, and it happens all the time. And he's like lighting road flares to like show there was an accident. And then it cuts back to Annie, and she's driving, and she's like trying to rationalize what happened and how she was out of control, and it wasn't her fault, and let's see. So she's going for a while, and she's trying to figure out like what she's gonna tell her husband and why she's late. And then while she's going, and she's like getting on another exit, and she passes the hitchhiker again. You can barely see him, and then she like slams on a brake, and like you see him in the background, and she like looks in her rearview mirror, and she like sees him walking up, and she turns around, and he's still like walking up, and then she like turns back facing forward, and she can't believe what she's seeing, turns back around, and he's gone. And then she's like, "Oh, my mind's just messing with me because of this. He's not really there. I don't know if I'll be able to handle this, take this." And while she's talking to herself, he pops up at her window, and he starts saying, "Thanks for the ride, lady. Thanks for the ride." And she screams. And see, is this the point where he puts his hand through her sunroof?
I think he pops up through the top.
Well, he pops up in her window, and then I think he puts his arm through her sunroof, and she like takes off, and like she has him on the side of her car, and he kind of like gets on top of it, and he keeps saying, "Thanks for the ride, lady," and he's like grabbing her hair and stuff. And so while she has him on the side of the car, she's speeding down the road, and then she goes into the woods, and he's like on top of the car, and he's trying to get her. And while she's going through the woods, sporadically, there's like a low branch, and she hits it, and he flies off. And she pulls up, and then she stops. Let's see. Yeah, low-hanging branch. Okay, yeah, I think. So she stops, and when she like reaches into her glove compartment and starts searching through it, and she pulls out a gun, and she like holds it up, and she's getting ready, and like the hitchhiker opens up her passenger door, and he's saying, "Thanks for the ride, lady. Thanks for the ride." And he's like getting into her car, and each time he pops up, he's like more and more like injured and deformed and stuff, and he's already covered in blood, but his face like gets worse every time. And so he's getting into her car, and she shoots him, and he kind of backs up for a second, and then he opens his eyes, and he just starts saying, "Thanks for the ride." And he's coming back, and he has his hand up, and she shoots him in his hand, and there's a hole, and she shoots him again, and like pushes him out of the car, and she takes off, and let's see, where did she take off? Yeah, let's see.
She keeps saying how, oh, you got in a wreck, and rationalizing what she's gonna tell her husband.
Yeah, so she kicks him out of the car, and then like he rolls onto the road. They're back near the road, and she like takes off, but then she stops, and he's laying in the road, and she backs up and she runs him over a couple of times to like get him to stop following her. And then she's driving again, and her car's getting more and more damaged because like going through the woods and running them over, and she keeps talking about how much it will cost to get the car fixed and like having this these imaginary people that work at the car place or the whoever would fix her seats, and you know, if you will you pay this much, you know, it'll be like brand new, and she keeps saying stuff like that. And while she keeps driving, and all of a sudden like the hitchhiker's arm comes up on over her hood, and she sees him obviously, and he like picks his head up, and she's driving with him on the front of her car, so she turns off the road again and goes like down this hill. And while she's doing that, like the hitchhiker is well, before she turns off the hill, he holds up his Dover sign and it says "You killed me" on it, and then she turns off. And so she's going down the hill, and he's like banging on the hood, and he was a stunt man, so that was a practical, which everything in the Creepshow movies are practical because of the time it came out. But they had a way to have his leg up by the engine, and so he wouldn't fall off. So she goes down this hill, and she like plows into this tree, like plows him into it, and then she backs up and she does it again. She backs up and she does it again, and then she passes out, and she's out, and she wakes up and he's gone, and she like backs up, and she thinks that like at the very beginning that she like went off the road and like crashed and like passed out then, and the whole thing was like a fantasy. There was no hitchhiker or anything. So she backs up back on the road and she drives home, and she drives all the way home, and she's worried about like her husband being there and why she was so late, and she's like, my car's a mess and my brain's a mess, and like that's a good enough excuse to be late. And so she pulls up to the house and like opens the garage and goes in, and her car's destroyed and it's covered in blood, and her husband's not home. And she's like, of all the times like for him to be late, like that today is that time. And she opens the door and like starts to get out, and then the hitchhiker's under her car, and he's just smashed. He looks like you'd smash like a fly, and you get close up to it, like his eyes are way off, and he's just like hamburger meat, and he's saying, thanks for the ride, lady, thanks for, and she starts screaming, and he gets up from under the car, and he like grabs her, and she's screaming, and she starts asking him how much. And she's like 50, 100, and he's just holding her, and and she's screaming, and then the garage door closes, and her husband pulls up, and this is 5 seconds later, and the garage door opens again, and you can see the smoke from her car because it's still on, and he pulls in, and he's like, Annie, his name's George. And he opens up her car door, and she's dead, and she has the Dover sign on her, and
It goes to animation.
and it goes to animation, this like cartoon thing, and it goes to the creeper, or the creep. I think is he the creeper or is he the creeper? Yeah. Okay, it's just the creep in this. So it goes to the creep, and he is in a truck, and he starts like saying farewell to the audience, and he hopes like they enjoyed the show, and then he sees Billy running from the bullies from earlier, and he leads them into like an abandoned lot, and they come up and they're like, "We're gonna beat the tar out of you," and all that running was for nothing. And while they're talking and like doing the whole whatever that's called, like you see like this Venus flytrap kind of come up behind them, and so while they're talking, like it kind of sneaks up on him and starts grabbing all the bullies, and like it eats the one with the glasses and the other one, and then like it grabs Rhino, the main one, and like he like is holding himself out, which I always find it really funny because like he's like big and like muscular, and he's supposed to be like this kid bully, but like he's huge. And then like it eats him, and then Billy, which is like my least favorite line in the whole movie, and he's like, a giant Venus flytrap, they eat meat. And it's so weird. I don't know why, but and then it cuts back to live action, and you see the creep, and he's in the back of a truck, and then the credits are starting to go, and he starts like throwing newspapers out, and there's like creepy music, and the credits are going, and it follows the truck all the way down, and where you can still see the truck but you can't see him. He's still in the back, still throwing the papers, but he's just gone, and that's how the movie ends. So Creepshow 2, it's a lot of fun.
A little less happens than the
Yeah,
first
there's with the only 3 segments, and there's 2 segments that are cut out that are in Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. There's the evil cat one, and I don't remember what the other one was. But they were supposed to be in Creepshow 2. I don't remember if it was budget or just time restraints, but they eventually did come out in a separate anthology movie. But out of Creepshow 1 and 2, 1 is my favorite because it has the crate. But when Creepshow 2, the raft is probably my favorite in Creepshow 2. It's weird. It's a little inappropriate, especially like by today's standards. But I don't know, like a blob monster will always like interest me, like where'd it come from?
I thought you liked the Hitchhiker.
I do. But I don't know, a blob monster is just so interesting. It doesn't have a shape. It doesn't like
It has no motive.
Yeah, it's just this thing. And then like when he is being a creep to that girl that's like asleep, and then she like turns and her face is all melting. It's so cool. But
we'll use that to wrap up this week's episode. Tell them about next week's.
So the next episode will be a rock opera horror comedy.
It's not really a rock opera.
Would you say it's not?
I mean, it's got songs.
I guess so.
in
It does have songs in it.
But not everything is a song.
You're right. That's just how I explain it to people, really. So it's a movie called Suck, and it's about a rock band on probably their last tour. They're like an indie rock band. They haven't made it.
From Canada.
From Canada, and they are probably on their last tour, and they come. Let's see, how can I put that? They meet vampires, and shenanigans ensue.
Alice Cooper's in it.
We'll talk about that when it happens.
Iggy Pop.
It has a great cast of familiar faces, and we'll talk about it next time on You Gotta Be Effing Kidding. Thank you. Good night.
Before I end this segment, I have video footage of Anthony admitting that his favorite is The Hitchhiker, and he lied. So I'm gonna show it. Roll film.
And The Hitchhiker is my favorite story in Creepshow 2.
I thought The Raft was your
I
favorite.
like The Raft. The Hitchhiker's so much fun. It's a fun one.
There's your proof. Now, that's the end of the show. Happy nightmares.